That's something I learned a long time ago is, you want to create a win-win-win situation. I actually give more. I actually add to people's paychecks an extra 500, or I give them a couple $100 cash.
Management actually thrives off pitting employees against each other. So that way they're more competitive. And at your place, it seems that it's more of a collaborative environment where people help each other out. So can you share about your first experience in building a dealership?
Yeah, so I've been in the business for going on almost 25 years now, maybe closer to 23. My first dealership that I opened and started up. So I was working in 2019 as a finance manager at Santa Monica Maserati and Volvo. And I was doing pretty well. I was making good money. I was comfortable financially. I was also running my brokerage. So I started the brokerage about 10 years ago, 2016-ish. And because the brokerage wasn't making enough consistent money on its own, I kind of moonlighted as a broker while I kept a career in finance management at new car dealerships. The good thing about it is I'm not really competing. If I had a Maserati to sell, I would sell it from my dealership. So I was essentially bringing them more business. And there's a lot of downtime as a finance manager. And for me, I hate paperwork, so I'd often hire another less successful finance manager to do my paperwork on my deals, which was kind of, cumbersome for me. So I always had more free time as a finance manager. And in my downtime, I'd work on my broker clients. So I was pretty successful financially. Then I got a call from a guy who I worked with in the past. And what's weird is I thought I could trust this guy because he's always acting like he's a good Christian and does the right thing. And, he says the right things. And, at the time, I didn't see the red flags of him trying to oversell his Christianity or pretend like he's this great person.
An honorable person.
Yeah, like an honorable person. So he kind of fooled me, and I guess I'm less gullible than I was back then, but, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I always want to see the positive side in people and trust them. Also, I didn't want to keep doing finance, and the brokering business back in those days was hyper competitive. I mean, when I launched Inside Car Guys, every single month there was 10 new brokers popping up within a 2-mile radius of my location. And customers would call me, then they call another broker. Instead of shopping dealerships, they were shopping brokers. So the income got diluted big time if I did win the deal. And, I changed my strategy later, but back then it was just trying to get a commission from the dealership versus charging the customer a flat fee like I do now. So anyway, this guy calls me and I'm not going to say his real name, but let's call him Chris. And he calls me up and he says, hey, I've got a opportunity to open up a dealership. The rent's $2,500 a month. And I think there was about room to stock 60 cars, but whatever. He was also running a successful brokerage, or I thought it was successful. Come to find out, he had like one employee. They were barely scraping by, barely making, ends meet. And he had lost a lot of momentum because he got into a big fallout with his former partner and they were both suing each other. But of course, all this started to unfold and become relevant as I already, fully committed to the mission. So he calls me up and he says, "Hey, I got this opportunity for sale, I've got this opportunity to lease this dealership to take over a struggling dealership." This was a dealership in a location that was never successful on its own. I came in there with the big vision. Everyone said, "Oh, this dealership's never been able to like really sell more than 10 or 15 cars a month. And they make $1,000 to $1,500 profit per car." And I said, "Wow, that's not enough. That's not even what I'm making right now, personally, financially, let alone the bills and the 50-50 split." I said, "No, we're going to run it like a new car store. We're going to stock 60 cars. We're going to sell 30 to 40 of them a month. And we're going to make between $4,000 and $5,000 profit." And once again, profit's not a dirty word, right? I'm entitled to make that much money if I'm buying the cars right and, working the system the right way. It's harder work to make that type of money because it's the work's up front. You can't just make it by, selling a car unless you're lying or cheating customers. Where I have a lot of integrity when it comes to doing business, and I want to make a lot of money, but I also want to, give people a good deal on the car. So usually that means I'm selling a better car for less than most other dealers are selling the same car for. And I've got a better car and I'm still making more money. But it all goes into like the hard work of sourcing the cars at that point. So I knew all of this going in. I know how the best dealerships are ran. And I know that because I've worked at 20 plus new car stores. I absorb knowledge insanely fast. I see things that they try to hide. I see like the secrets, like I just know. So I see all of that and I'm able to process it and interpret everything really fast and quickly. So, what might take a finance manager 5 years to learn, I learn in 2-3 months. That's how quick I am and how observant I am. A lot of that goes to my upbringing and my street smarts, being able to like recognize things. So anyway, I say yes to him. I join it. And I make a deal with them. I say, "All right, let's be partners, 50-50 split on everything." And it's a handshake deal. There's nothing in writing. I'm still gullible. I still trust people. All the paperwork, licenses, leases, they're all in his name.
So you didn't have a contract and you trusted him?
Yeah, so I didn't have a
Handshake
contract.
deal.
I trusted him, handshake deal. That's the type of guy I am because in my mind, I wouldn't screw anyone over who's, bringing me a lot of good fortune and goodwill. So anyway, I trusted him, and I guess it's different when someone doesn't share the same moral character that you share.
Yeah, very different.
And what happened was I ended up working my ass off. I built the business almost singularly on my own. He was nowhere to be found. He's exhausted. A little bit of extra money comes in, extra relief. Because not only did I come in and I start busting my ass to build this dealership, I redirected all of my broker business towards the company. And he was primarily benefiting from all of my broker business. So I remember I had a roommate at the time who bought a car. We made a commission. I gave that to the company, to support the company, right? And obviously cover the overhead. I never cared about the money. I just cared about winning the game, right? To me, the game is building a successful business, a stable business. And I was like, oh yeah, the money will come later. Who cares? So I keep giving, pouring into the company. I mean, I was getting free cars, literally free cars. People would give me their old car because they liked me, and it wasn't worth much to them, but they were buying a new car, so they'd give me a car that's worth 4 or 5 grand retail. And I was contributing that to the business. And, he started to get a little bit, I don't even know the word I'm looking for.
Comfortable, greedy.
Yeah, all of the above. Comfortable, greedy, and misconstrued the actual live events as if, oh, these are my cars, not, I was like, dude, I brought the car in. Why are you saying they're your cars? And it's like, I'm not giving you the car. I'm donating them to the business. Oh, don't drive this car because we don't have insurance. I'm like, this is a car I brought in from my friend to sell. Like, you're telling me not to drive a car? I'm like, I was driving it when I met you, And anyway, that was like a 2017 Rover. We were selling for like $55,000. He's like, don't drive it because we don't have insurance. I'm like, this isn't even nothing to do with you. I'm just, and then, yeah, we made 10 grand on that car. And of course, I didn't see any of the money. It just all goes towards the company. Then he starts, oh, the bills are higher and there's no money to split, and starts treating me like, oh, well, an employee.
Were you auditing the books?
Yeah, I was auditing the books, but then he conveniently deleted and took my access off of the Google Sheets. And, first he had them all confused, and they weren't clean books anyway. But I knew better, and I knew something was going on, and he just starts dumping costs into the books. Like, oh, I gave this guy $1,000 to consult me, and it was just his friend he's like, oh, I told you I give away money and this and that. It's like, yeah, but don't give away our money. Like, you can give it away on your own. So he starts using it and starts trying to get a little greedy, and then eventually I got fed up because he wasn't being fair in sharing the profits. And also he kept trying to minimize my position. Oh, don't tell people we're partners. You're not a GM because, he makes me a GM, then a GSM, then a sales manager. And I'm like, dude, like, I built this thing, and because his name was on everything. And that's the way he is. So I started to learn real quick. Not to mention he was lying to his wife, about, oh, Marcus did this mistake and I had to stay late. No, I didn't. It wasn't even my job, the paperwork for the DMV. So he's like lying to his wife.
About staying late?
Yeah, about staying late, and it's like blaming it on me. And I'm like, oh, okay, now this is start. And then she started to get upset with me quite often. And I was like, wait. First, she was my biggest fan because I was coming in to save his business and create a new business, and we were all going to make a lot of money together. Then
well, what they say, how a businessman treats his wife is how he's going to treat his business partners.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I didn't know that they said that.
It's a big thing.
Yeah, so anyway, there was like a lot of just, it didn't feel good, and then the main thing I didn't like about this partnership is the guy always made me look bad. He would promise an employee a certain amount of commission on a car, or he would make a deal with a vendor, or one time a guy came to fix a copy machine. We needed a printer, and he found a used one for like $200 instead of buying a new one for $400. And then we get it and it prints, wonky, and we call a guy to fix it because it wasn't working right. And the guy's like, okay, it'll cost $200 to fix it. Well, you should have just bought a brand new one. And he doesn't want to fix it. So the guy's standing around, okay, well, $60 for the service call. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's fair, And this guy just becomes quiet. That was his motive. He would just be quiet and ignore the person. He's done that to me several times in our partnership. And it was so awkward, and I guess he's waiting for the guy to leave, and the guy keeps looking at me, and I'm like, dude, just pay the guy. It's $60. I mean, you called him out here. It's whatever. It's a mistake. And anyway, I finally talked him into paying the guy like 30 minutes later of this awkwardness of this guy standing around.
Such a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah. And it was also stressful. There were so many times where a customer or a salesperson or a vendor, I had to get in the middle to kind of like negotiate it because he promised them or said one thing and was trying to do the other.
So in a sense, you were his buffer or his fall guy.
Yeah.
To make him look good, and then anything negative.
Yeah, I was his
would
fixer.
go to you.
Exactly. And I remember I had notebooks of pages and pages of notebooks of like meeting notes about like, dude, you got to keep your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Like trying to, I guess, mentor him to be a better person. And, he would, same thing, just get quiet or uncomfortable when we were talking or frustrated with me. And I kind of eventually knew it was a lost cause. So I stepped down, I quit, I walked away. I started looking for a job and trying to rebuild my brand at the same time, and it was a struggle. So I was running out of money and I still needed money to like live. And at the same time, when I walked away from the business, let me back up. The final push for me to leave, he interviewed and hired another manager without letting me interview him and said, oh, this guy knows you're the GM. It doesn't matter if you interview him. And I could tell that manager had like an instant ego over me. He just does these like smirk looks every time I say something. And, him and Chris was having secret meetings. And I was like, yeah, this guy's here to replace me. And not to mention, Chris took probably 3 or 4 vacations within the first 9 months of us starting. And I worked my ass off every day. And then I go take a vacation. He cuts off all my access and to everything. And was like, whoa, this and that. Okay, I'll give you 50% and we'll do this and this and this. Write down your business plan for the next 3 months. Like what would you do and how you would do it. So I know that, I can trust you. And I was like, this sounds like he's just trying to extract information out of me. So when he gets rid of me, he has a plan to go off of. So it was shady. Anyway.
Did you write it down?
I was very vague on it. And he got frustrated when he read it. So I wrote down like the key points, not the specifics. And I kind of knew what he was doing. So anyway, I came back and, I thought we had a deal. And then he brought in this new guy, wanted me to train this new guy. And I could tell that this new guy, his resume was not an accurate description of his experience. And, he wasn't nowhere near as experienced or as ambitious and motivated as I was. He kind of just wanted to hang out and talk a lot and wasn't very productive. So anyway, I was like, there's only one way to really show him too how valuable I am, which is leaving. And then I left, and a few months later, I needed money and I couldn't really find or land another job as quick as I thought I would. And I was already settled in out here. I was living on the beach and I didn't want to leave. So I didn't want to also commute to LA from Ventura, and went back to him. I was like, hey, how are things going? I left in November, and, between November and January, he got in the red about $80,000, from a sustainable, profitable business when I left. I was like, oh, how'd you do that? I guess the new guy's not really all he's cracked up to be.
Himself.
Yeah. So he was panicking. It was like, man, I got to come up with $60,000. I messed up, whatever. I didn't know the whole time the guy had a really bad gambling habit. And he was losing big money in poker. betting $5,000 hands. And, that's why he would stay late at the dealership. He was at poker games,
Wow.
lying to his wife. So anyway, I didn't know he was a horrible poker player. I kind of knew he wasn't a good poker player because we played a few games, but I didn't know he was like gambling big money at these poker games, losing it. And, that also explained why, he was shorting my paychecks and my share of the income. So anyway, this all came to light like months way after I quit for the second time. Or actually, the second time was a bit more dramatic. So I go back to work, and this is in January, and he tells me how bad the company's doing. It's like, all right, no worries, man. I rolled up my sleeve. I was like, don't worry. You owe $60K. We'll make 80 grand this month. I'll save the company. And I busted my ass, and we made 80 grand from the company. And I cleaned up the new guy's mess, and I got everything fixed and organized and going again. And we started to gain some momentum. And then March 2020, COVID hit. And it was like a couple days before, or it was like the day of the shutdown, the country shutdown, countrywide shutdown, that he had the new manager fire me. So because I got the company going and they figured it out, they learned from their mistakes, they got information out of me, whatever. He had the new manager fire me. And not only did he have the new manager fire me, he also owed me almost $20,000 because he kept shorting or kept rolling over the money. And then he gives me some baloney. He's like, oh, see, I paid you this much in this time and this much in that time. So you've been, I was like, no, you've been late paying me and I've been okay with it. So you still owe me 20 grand because I kept my own set of records and books that time. So he tried to confuse me and showing me like false evidence, that he was up to speed. He fires me. He doesn't pay me. I think he gives me like 2 grand, after a week or so. But this is this guy's motivation. He's done that to so many other people that after he lets them go, he doesn't pay them or, treats them like that. So anyway, I was kind of struggling, and then I got lucky. A few things happened in my favor to where I was okay financially during the COVID situation. I rebranded my company. I mean, everything Inside Car Guys was now 100% merged with him, and it was all the leads and effort was going to him. So I separated all that. I took back over my website, my marketing. And then I called my buddy Wilson, who kind of like came to my rescue because he knew how to, rebuild. He rebuilt the website and helped me get the marketing going again. And him and I partnered for a couple years. We ended it amicably, and he was a great help to getting me back on my feet and got me going again. And then eventually I actually went back into finance at a Toyota dealership, and I was using my income to get the company going again. I'm really good at finance, so the average finance guy makes 8 to 10 grand a month. I was making 20. So I was using all my excess income because my cost of living was so low. Probably 3-4 grand a month. And I was using all of my excess income to get Inside Car Guys back up and running. I mean, I'm talking about spending thousands of dollars on software and rebuilding the foundation of Inside Car Guys. I even got up to one point where I was spending $15,000 a month on Google AdWords to get leads coming in. Then that started working. Then we're like, oh man, we got a bunch of leads. Now we need to hire salespeople to work those leads. And then we started working the leads ourselves, started closing deals, creating scripts, processes, formats, whatever, and then started hiring salespeople to work from home. At this time, COVID brought chaos to the car dealership in both good and bad ways. The bad way was all the cars became like instantly worth 10 grand more, both new and used across the board.
Was this because of the shortage of the chips for new cars?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. And I mean, just a lot, the shutdown in the world, there was so many reasons. The chip shortages, whatever it was, materials, factories, everything getting shut down. So now if you wanted to go buy a brand new Corolla, instead of $189 a month on a lease, you were paying like $589 to lease a new Corolla. And if you wanted to buy it, it cost $10,000 a month more. And the dealerships that used to sell 100 cars a month now only had 10 to 20 to sell.
Oh, wow.
Where they used to have 200 to sell and they sell 100, they only had 10 to 20 for that month to sell. So they still had the same bills and everything else, but I get it. Okay, they're used to making a couple grand a car. Now they need to make 12 grand a car. So also supply and demand. There was not a shortage of buyers. The economy was flooded with all types of stimulus checks and COVID relief funds. So everybody had an abundance of money and consumer goods went through the roof, specifically cars. So now the new cars were 10 grand a month or $10,000 retail more. But also, you could buy a brand new car if you could get lucky enough to buy it at MSRP and go sell it to CarMax and make $5,000. And the trade-in vehicles or the lease returns also had equity of $5,000 to $10,000 more. This is where a lot of customers got upset and they kind of overpaid for cars. Most of them didn't know that they could cash in the equity on their lease returns. So they were just turning their lease into the dealership. And because most people worked at home, a lot of 2-car, 3-car households went down to 1 or 2 cars. So they didn't need to lease another car.
Yeah, I remember I got rid of my car.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people got rid of cars. And the only time in history that I know of where LA traffic ceased to exist. The freeways were clear. They were no longer parking lots. You could get from one side of LA to the other in 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. It was amazing. But it was crazy too. It was almost surreal. But yeah, so cars went up 10 grand, both new and used. A lot of people were leaving the equity from their lease return on the table. That's where I started to make a lot of money, when people were just turning in their leases to me. And I was able to capture that equity by selling their car, wholesaling their car. And also, I was also really good at brokering, because let's say you did want to lease a new car, but the offset was about 10 grand. Well, I could take the 10 grand equity from your current lease, apply that towards the new car. And instead of you paying $589 a month for a new Corolla, your payment went up to $289 instead of $189. So it was like a
huge
sweet
savings.
spot. Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I had one customer who was so happy. I got him a Honda Civic for like $189 or $79 a month. And by the time he turned in his lease or he sold his lease, he said, I got all of the money back on the lease. So he walked away. Yeah, he walked away with the check for like $8,500, and that basically gave him all of the money. So he was so happy, and he didn't need another car. I was like, yeah, good for you, man. So a lot of my customers were super happy with the deals I got them.
And it also just shows that you are a businessman with integrity, because I can see a lot of other brokers kind of capturing that equity and keeping some for themselves.
Well, I mean, I was definitely doing that, but on the ones where people didn't, need it or care about it.
But you're more transparent with your fees, right?
Exactly.
Whereas other people would probably have ballooned it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah. If there's a way to solve a problem in the customer's favor, I'm definitely going to do that. But in most cases, it's always going to be whatever's best for the customer. But also, I need to, I'm not going to let money just,
Yeah,
lay on
every
the
business
table.
needs to make money, but
Yeah.
at least you were transparent with them and
Yeah,
save them as
exactly.
much as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these I didn't even realize. Like, they would turn in their lease to me, and I wouldn't even realize that there was equity in it until later. And it's like, oh wow, I got lucky because I was able to find someone to buy the lease out. But yeah, whenever there was a chance to help a customer and have them save money, I was always about a win-win situation. As a matter of fact, that's something I learned a long time ago is, you want to create a win-win-win situation. As long as the other party involved isn't losing, or you're losing, it's a fair deal. So everybody wins. For me, I mean, the same thing as if a customer took a car to a dealership and turned it in and walked away as a lease. That's where I came in, and I was the convenience. As a matter of fact, I have one customer who I've probably sold 5 cars to, and they're reaching out to me for like their 6th car already. So here's something I've done for customers that go above and beyond. This customer, she turned in an Audi, and it was damaged. It had like a bumper and a headlight broken, and I think it needed tires. So I got the bumper fixed, the headlight fixed, the tires done, and that only costed her $3,000 ish, whereas she was in for a $10,000 wear and tear damage fee on her lease return. So I saved her $7,000, and she was super, super impressed with that. And of course, she would have went in trying to get it fixed to like regular retail repair shops. They would have charged her $5 or $6 grand. So I saved her half of that, and I saved her, 70% of what she would have paid to turn the car in that way.
That's a huge savings.
Yeah. That's another problem I solved strategically for that customer. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun business. It's very rewarding, especially when you do things the right way. One of the things I like doing right now is helping people out. So not only do we help partner with local charity, James Storehouse, we give them cars at a super huge discount that, well below what I paid for the car. So in my way, that's like going half with them on the car that they give away to a kid who's aged out of the system, who's aged out of the foster care system, the group home system. And I'm able to be a part of that in some small way and, help donate a car to those kids. And obviously they raise some money. So let's say the car costed me $8,000 and they got $4,000. I pitch in the other $4,000. Whereas I could sell that same car for $10,000 or $12,000 to a customer. So I'm giving away my future profit, and I'm giving away half of the money I've already spent on the car in most cases. So, that's one thing I do. The other thing I do too is like when a customer comes in and I know they're struggling and they don't have a lot of money, and they're genuinely good people, I will give them a good deal on the car where I might be losing a little bit of money as well. And that's another way I can give back to customers. So it's another cool thing that I like to do is help people out case by case, individual basis.
Well, taking it back to, your first dealership and the conflicts that you had with your former business partner. So what are some lessons that you learned from that, and how did you bring those to your new dealership?
One of the biggest challenges for me was constraint. Because I grew up in like a crazy, chaotic environment, and I was thinking bad things. I wanted to take revenge, mess that guy up, really hurt him. But every time I came close to like wanting to go through with one of those, I just somehow like showed some constraint. And then forgiveness, I practice forgiveness because it's not for them, it's for me. I really learned how to work on forgiveness. But more so, I think the big values I've got out of that was the process, how to start up a car dealership, how to get it going, what it takes to get it going. It takes a lot of work. And I've learned the things I don't want to do or the things I don't want to be, the actions I don't want to portray. So how to treat people and make sure that people feel good. Instead of what he does, which is trying to take a little bit off of everyone's paycheck and short their paycheck, so he pockets an extra $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 every paycheck cycle. I actually give more. I actually add to people's paychecks an extra $500, or I give them a couple $100 cash in a way to show appreciation every time I do payroll, especially if we're having a good month. So I reward people. I don't take from them. That's one of the things I do, completely different. And that's motivation. It builds a good culture. Most of the people that, I want to say everybody that works for me, they're very happy. It's a live environment. Everyone's always happy, busy. No one's like really stressed out. I mean, of course, we have slow months where people get a little stressed, but no one feels it more than me. It's like on a good month, I can make a lot of money. On a bad month, I have to take money out of a 401k, a retirement account, or my savings account, or find a way to get a loan, So, those are some of the challenges. Right now, I've got about 30 people working for me at this moment.
Wow.
Yeah. And my overhead is north of $300,000. So imagine that, if you had told, if I were to tell you and say, hey, I'll give you this business, but you got to make sure you come up with $300,000 a month to break even. Whatever's left over is your profit. But you got to save a lot of that profit because some months are going to be slow and you got to give some of it back. And also, like the first couple years of starting up most businesses, and I think this is where most people go wrong when they start up a business, right? Is they're used to being an employee at a business. So they're used to taking their profit off the top, or, let's say you make $5,000 a month as a chef and you start up a kitchen and you start seeing a lot of money come in and you're not that great at accounting and you forget that you owe vendors or whoever bills. And now you're paying yourself $10,000 a month, but now you're every month you're growing higher and higher in debt and you're scratching your head because this will catch up to you fast. I look back and I'm like, wow, I owe $100,000 right now. I've got no money in the bank. Everyone's been paid except me. Where did all this money come from? And then you start like looking at every bill and every credit card transaction, wondering if you're, being stolen from or people are using fake numbers. And you look back, you're like, oh no, that's all legit. It's just, it's been silently adding up. And you're like, man, this now I'm in debt $100,000. And, I'm sure this is what a lot of new businesses go through when someone starts a business, especially when they're an employee. They're like, well, I still need $5,000 to live off of, so I'm going to pay myself $5,000. And there's excess money in the business account, so I'm going to pay myself $10,000 or whatever it is. And a lot of people start a business because they think that business owners are rich and they get to pay themselves more. And, that's where they either steal from their employees or They stress themselves out because they don't hire enough help and they want to do 2 or 3 jobs, whatever the case is. And then the business slowly goes upside down and it becomes a lot of debt. So for me, I like I said, I'm very, very frugal, very stingy with paying myself. I mean, I have a great lifestyle, but the first couple years I didn't pay myself anything. And I was very, very careful. I was like, I could hire someone to make 20 grand a month or 10 grand a month here to do what I'm doing. And I did the role of like 3 or 4 people, and I just kept on. Even then it wasn't enough. I still needed to raise money, and I still needed to come up with cash in very creative ways. So I did that, and that's what got me to the point I am now. It's obviously not. I'm still not on the like other end of it where I'm just raking in the big money, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and in a year or two, I should be there. But it's still a building process. Still a lot of money, coming and going. So 300,000 a month, right? Imagine waking up being responsible for that. And then add to that, let's say you have a slow week across the board on all your companies and businesses. And you're like, man, that's $100 grand worth of business that didn't happen. Yeah. Like that's going to be hard to make up for, and then you have a good week where you're like, oh, I've made double what I need to make a week. I mean, the goal is not to get too excited when the big money starts rolling in and just, let it sit there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really in the thick of things. I mean, most businesses, it takes 2 to 3 years for them to become successful, and a lot of them fail before their 5th year. So, right now you're what, 2 years into your brick and mortar?
Yeah, going on 3 right now, 3 years in. And I mean, yeah, that business was kind of stabilized, but then I started expanding, which set me back, spread my resources thin, and now it's kind of going backwards a little bit. Not to mention the weird stuff that's happening with the economy lately. I mean,
yeah, you're in California, so you had the fires at the beginning of the year.
Well, I've also got the greedy California agencies all in my pockets. I mean, it's super expensive, almost impossible to be successful and run a business out here. All the taxes and insurances you got to have, and compliance measurements, this and that. It's ridiculous. And I pay more to government agencies than most people make on any business as a profit. It's insane. The consumer laws are stacked in the favor of consumers. So, even if the car is not a bad car, I still somehow have to pay for it. Just because people are, like, oh, I bought a $10,000 car and I thought everything on the car was going to be brand new. It's like, no, I'm not rebuilding the car from the ground up. I'm buying a used car and I'm middlemaning it and selling it to you at the fair market value. If it needs tires, brakes, anything safety related, emissions related, or anything to do with reliability, I got that. Everything else on the car is up to you. The window doesn't roll up and down. That's really up to you. But I'll try to fix it because I can fix it cheaper. If it needs a new paint job, I usually do that. I've got a really good setup right now with paint. But still, there's always complaints. And there's more complaints on these cars for similar reasons of what, you might see at a new car dealership that don't get the same complaints. It's like if someone's spending 30 grand on a car and both of them have, like, let's say in a $5,000 car, and the front tires aren't the same brand as the back tires, but they're all new. Well, people complain about that more on a $5,000 car than they do a $20,000 or $30,000 car.
Do you think it's more of also the mentality of, maybe they could barely scrap by with the 5K to pay for that. So it means a lot more to them than someone who can finance a $30,000-$50,000 car.
Yeah,
Maybe their
actually,
mentalities
yeah.
are different.
Yeah, and I mean, that's from the abundancy and scarcity mindset, right? When someone's living in a scarcity mindset, their outside world reflects their inside world. So they're very skeptical, and everything's like, they're nervous about everything. Where if you got money and you're doing well in life, you got a good mindset and you're prolific, you're gonna have a more laid back, carefree attitude because to you life's a little bit easier. You're not stressed out over the little things.
Mode.
Yeah, you're not in survival mode. Exactly. And I mean, I do have a soft spot in my heart for some of those people, but also it's decision upon decision upon decision, and you can't take away that maybe they've done some bogus things in their life to end up where they're at, or they've been too sheltered or too scared or not ambitious enough to be a go-getter. But I try to size everything up, and I'm very passionate about people who are struggling, and I try to help them out. I mean, my first year in business, I probably gave back $50,000 of profit that I already made to try to help people fix their cars that they bought from me. So a lot of those cars where I thought I was making $1,000 at the time, I ended up losing $1,000 because it cost me $2,000 to fix the car. Whereas had I done that before I sold the car, I would have sold the car for a couple $1,000s more than what I sold it for. And that's something a lot of people don't take into consideration. They buy a car and they're like, oh, this broke, you got to fix it for me. It's like, no, if it had broke when I had it, I would have fixed it and raised the price. But I gave it to you at a fair deal, a good deal. And now you're asking me to fix it after I sold it and you already bought it at a lower price. So no, I'm not, most cases I'm not, but I will go half with them on it. And if they're not entitled and they're humble and I know they're barely scraping by and they're kind, they got a good attitude, a good person, I'm going to help them out. It's just my nature,
Okay, so we've heard about the financial challenges of being a business owner.
Yeah.
But what are some things looking towards the future that maybe you can give guidance to someone who's thinking of opening up a dealership? So we know it's definitely a big risk. You definitely need to be scrappy and hustle in order to make those bills. But
Right.
What are some good things? What's something that motivates you to continue and that will help someone who's thinking about going down this path?
I mean, a couple of things for me that I think I find value in. Number one, I'm very passionate about cars. So I get to drive cool cars all the time. I mean, I've had so many dream cars within the last 3 years: McLaren, Lamborghini, a few Corvettes, Porsches. The list goes on. I mean, I'm driving such cool cars nowadays. I love it. I've got a BMW i7, a new Cadillac Escalade, just pretty much any car I want to manifest or spawn, I can do it just like that. If I want to go buy a Lamborghini tomorrow, I can do it on OVE, my line of credit, boom, it's delivered in a week. Any car I want's literally at my fingertips. And because I own a dealership, I usually can sell those vehicles and make a profit instead of losing money, But it does become kind of stressful when they don't sell as quick as you want them to. I just recently had the Audi R8, and it was such an amazing car. Very fun car, Lamborghini engine. I bought it with 134 miles. The 2023 performance most loaded spec of that brand. So that was amazing. And then I've also had some other cool cars. BMW M8. That was an amazing car. So anyway, I get to drive so many cool cars. Another thing that I like about this business is I get to create the environment I want and the type of system I want versus working for somebody else's absentee owner, power hungry, struggling GM, that makes your life miserable by adding all these stupid rules to flex their power in a toxic environment, as most new car dealerships are. And, I feel energy. So when I walk into a dealership, I can feel the energy of the whole store, and if everyone's like just kind of like sad and tired and just like, wishing that they weren't alive, just like a horrible like atmosphere, I feel that. And very few dealerships have like good energy. You walk in my store, there's good energy. People are happy, they're lively, they're having fun, they're making calls, they're doing sales. There's a lot of good energy in my store.
Yeah, that's actually seems to be very true with new car stores where management actually thrives off pitting employees against each other. So that way they're more competitive. And at your place, it seems that it's more of a collaborative environment where
Yeah.
people help each other out. I've heard of, people in different departments helping the sales team, finance team, like they're more collaborative. I mean, no place is perfect. People will always have conflict here and there, but the goal is not to pit employees against each other for them to think that they're going to get more money. It seems like you do really try to focus on building a collaborative environment where it's like, hey, we all win. If the team wins, you as an individual also win. Whereas in new car stores, it's more of like every man for themselves, like try to hoard as much money and bonuses as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With that being said, most new car store pay plans are, it invites shady practices, right? For example, if you and I are working and I have a customer that comes back and I'm busy with another customer, or I'm at a lunch break or off that day, and you see the customer, you might help out that customer sell the car and keep all the commission because everyone's scrapping for every penny, and most new car dealerships they pay commission based on what you sell, based on what your name's on. And then it's a fight when I come back and I'm like, hey, that was my customer. And you're like, oh, they didn't ask for you. I didn't know. I did, I spent 3 hours with them and sold the car. And I'm like, yeah, I spent 2 hours with them the day before lining it up. And it becomes very frustrating for a lot of salespeople. At my dealership, there is no commission. It's a group pay plan. Every time we sell a car, everybody gets paid a percent or a flat fee. So whatever that fee is, let's say it's $100 per car, and I got 4 salespeople. Everybody makes $100. It's not like one salesperson makes $400. And that does bring on its own challenges. For example, some salespeople might try to hide behind the chaos and the noise, and they don't want to participate, or want everyone else to carry their weight. But we're such a small community, we're able to keep an eye on everyone, and everyone has to put in their share of it. So everyone's making 50 phone calls a day. Everyone's carrying their weight. So yeah, I mean, I've done a few things to create a good environment. Number one, I eliminated singular action commissions. If you sell a car, instead of making $300-400, that gets split amongst the group. It goes into a pot, but everybody carries their weight. So, for example, if someone needs to deliver a car, or someone's busy and they're working with another customer, someone else will help deliver that car. Or if a salesperson needs help with a customer, everyone's willing to help because everybody gets paid when we sell a car. The other thing I do too is, instead of paying minimum wage, I pay almost double minimum wage. So people can make a living. So a new car dealership, they're like, you're going to make minimum wage unless you earn through your sales more money than what in commission than what the minimum wage would have been. So, for example, you're guaranteed $2,500 a month at a new car store, no matter what, because that's minimum wage, whatever it is. And if you make $3,000 in commissions, then you get paid $3,000. You don't get paid both. Whereas I give my people $4,000 a month minimum, but if the group as a whole earns more, than that, then they get the lump sum. Or if one person is an individual superstar and they're carrying, most of the team, they're going to get a bonus. So everybody at my dealership gets paid enough money to live on, and everybody gets paid every time we sell a car. So that eliminated a lot of the hostility, the fighting, the arguing, the backstabbing, the toxic environment traits you find at new car dealerships. That creates a good energy at my dealership. So when customers walk in, they're like, wow, this place is cool. And then customers might even say, oh, well, I was working with so-and-so and I want to make sure they get the commission. We don't pay commissions here. Everybody gets paid the same way.
And what I've seen from your team, it's like you're really invested in everyone. So I've heard that you've also done conferences for management for them to improve their leadership skills. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, I've invested heavily in my own self-growth. I've been to like the Tony Robbins seminars and these transformational training, self-helps, growth and development courses myself. A lot of them, thanks to my best friend who, has always been there for me, supporting me, and, even sponsored some of them for me back in the past when I didn't have money. And he's helped me grow, and these things have helped me tremendously. So, I try to share my knowledge of what I know or, can teach through those courses that I've learned from with my staff and my management team. And then the opportunity came up where I was able to send all of my managers to Tony Robbins' seminar, Unleash the Power Within. And, obviously I'm like, wow, I got to cover 2 dealerships solo while all my managers are at this seminar. And, surprisingly, I focused on selling cars again and got back into it. And I was able to sell 15 cars, obviously with the help of my sales team, but, manage it the 3 days while my management team was all together in that seminar. So it was rewarding in 2 ways. One way is it just gave everybody a positive, fresh outlook. These things plant seeds in people, right? No one just automatically transforms. It does change a lot of people's lives, but a lot of the lessons slowly take time to foster and grow within someone. Or I know it's true for me. A lot of these things, it took a while for the information to catch on, right? And for me, it's like planting a seed, watering the seed by refreshing the lesson or hearing it from somebody else or a different perspective on what that might mean or look like, to be. And, it was great for me because everybody came back with a tremendous amount of energy. One of my sales managers was battling cancer, and, he was depressed. In his words, he thought his life was over. He basically was ready to throw in the towel. He went to it and he came out super inspired. He's like, you know what? After that, I said, I'm going to beat this thing. I'm going to kick its ass. And it gave him that like mental motivation to, that will to like fight and live. And he got through his battle and he's good now. Hopefully it lasts. And that was like my biggest reward from that, even though it had nothing to do with the business, and that guy has since resigned from his position because he wants to enjoy life and a little bit whatever. And another thing too that I did for him was I paid him his full salary while he was going through his treatments. Instead of letting him take a reduced income with whatever unemployment or whatever it is, disability. I gave him his full salary, and while he was gone for those months, trying to fight for his life. So that was one of the ways I was able to give back to him, and it felt good. It feels good to give back to people and to support them in their time of need, because you never know when it's your turn and you're going to need help and support, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's one of the things I like to do is constant and never-ending improvement. If you're in my life and you're close to me, like, my goal is to make your life better. Like, I want to leave you in a better position, than when we met. I want to help you grow. If there's things I can do for you or things I can build for you or whatever, I just want to do that. And I want to give you a better life, so when I leave or we go our separate ways, if that ever happens, it's like, wow, that guy was really cool. That guy really helped me out in life, and he really gave me tools or resources or whatever gifts that made my life better.
And how does that apply to your customers? You have a lot of customers that range from, someone buying a Honda Civic to someone buying an Audi. So how do you apply that to your customers? Because not everyone comes in happy. Sometimes they have complaints, and you kind of have to resell them.
Yeah.
Not just the car, but the experience, right? Because you want people to have a good experience buying a car from your company.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a matter of perspective, right? Customer A, customer B come in, both of them have the same exact experience on the same exact car with the same exact dollar amount, in different universes, right? Or different dimensions. Customer A, who, once again, they're a more positive person. They're like, this was great. This was the greatest thing ever. You made my life easy. And customer B, they're always going to find something to complain about. And we're like, well, the paint on this mirror is faded a little bit, and it's not as bright as the paint on this mirror. And because you sold me the car, it's your responsibility to paint it, and or whatever it is, and it's like, yeah, okay, well, this is once again, this is where it comes to just rationalizing with people, or being able to change their perspective and say, well, at least you have a mirror. Some dealerships will sell you a car without a mirror. Or if the mirror is missing, they're not going to replace it, But, my main responsibility is to make sure the car runs and drives. It's safe and relatively reliable. It passes emissions. That's all my responsibility is when I buy and sell a car. There's 1,000 other things in between that and the car just being a complete non-running, hunk of metal that is kind of like your risk when you buy a used car. Big thing is oil leaks, right? I don't fix every oil leak. It's too expensive, too time consuming, especially when the oil is just seeping out of there. But if it's like making smoke and it's smelling, yeah, I'm going to fix it. It's coming from up top. It's the valve cover. It's an easy fix. Some oil leaks, it's just like seeping from a little gasket that's really hard to get to and super expensive to fix. It's a cheap car, and the car will probably run the rest of its life and live another 100,000 miles and not even lose oil. Like, why am I going to fix that? But you take it to a mechanic, they're going to say, oh, well, yeah, you definitely have to fix this. And, they're going to recommend 1,000 other things that is going to put money in their pocket, but really not necessary for the car health or longevity. And then customers come back and they complain about that.
How do you deal with all of the stresses of just like, okay, you have the finances, you have the customers, you have your team, you have complaints coming from everywhere, and you have to appease all these people. And then
I got to make sure the business is running and profitable
exactly.
and healthy and still do my job, my 10 jobs.
And then when the lights go off and you go home, like how do you process all of this and like still have balance in your life? Do you take this energy home to your family? Do you shut it down and it's your whole different person? Like, hey, let's barbecue, let's this. How do you manage it all? Because you're just dealing with so much on a daily basis. Or do you just go and flop on the couch and it's like, okay, we're doing it again tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of the latter part because, like, usually when I go home, I've left it all on the table, mentally exhausted, physically drained. And you know, I know it's not good for my personal, like, health or longevity, but, you know, it's something that it gets easier every day. And I feel like I'm gradually, like, inching towards the days where I can work less and benefit more from the hard work and the path I've paved. I know a lot of my managers, I mean, and salespeople, they take 2 days off a week and vacations, and sometimes they take an extra day during the week whenever they need it. Whereas I've worked 70, 80, 90 days straight, you know, without a break in between. Recently, one of the steps I've taken towards that is to just close on Sundays. So now, I mean, I'm missing business on Sundays, sure. I look on the cameras and I see customers all over the lot and I'm like, oh man, I could have sold a car. But I'm also like, I need a day off. And if I don't take off Sundays, I'm just going to never have a day off. So that's been one step towards that. And it's given me time back so I can, you know, spend that with my family. When I take vacations, I take nice vacations. You know, every like 5-6 months, I'll take a nice vacation. I accumulate a lot of points because I spend a lot of money with the company. So I can get really nice hotel rooms at no cost, suites. So I take advantage of the point system. And, you know, even recently in my last podcast, podcast number 2, I was sick. Like I was watching the videos and I saw these bags under my eyes. I was like, man, I felt so weak. I was so exhausted. I was in the middle of a vacation. And when I started taking the vacation, I got sick. And there's this thing where they say, you know, your body won't allow you to get sick when you're in work mode. But then when you take some time off, like you finally get sick. And it's like, this happens a lot to a lot of people I know that are really hard workers, is like they don't get sick until they take a break or a vacation. And that's kind of what happened to me a couple weeks ago, you know. And you know, it showed. You know, I looked like I was like really tired, even though I was sleeping a lot. And I felt like nauseous and weak. It could have been COVID or a flu, I don't know. But yeah, it really did a number on me. And it's funny because it's like, okay, I get a nice hotel room using my points. So now I'm wasting my points almost to get an ocean view hotel room in Santa Barbara, and I'm sick. But, you know, that's... I got to do more of that balance. I also found working out helps. So like on the second part of my vacation, I worked out like 3 times that week and I felt so great. So now my goal, and I'm working with my consultants, like just work out, you know, the people, my mentors, work out. That helps channel some of the stress. But yeah, it's a struggle, you know, to find that work-life balance, especially when you're like overly ambitious and you're trying to do so much at warp speed, you know.
But you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. You can't. That's so true. You can't pour from an empty cup. You got to fill up the cup. But sometimes, like when you're so deep in, you have no choice but to keep pouring from that empty cup, or the cups that are depending on you and surrounding you, that look for you, and the businesses, like they need that fulfillment, because like where am I going to come up with money, and it's like I'm the number one producer in my company. I make the most money in my company.
And that's a common theme, right?
Yeah.
People always come to the CEO for everything. So it's so important to delegate. So how do you delegate from preventing everyone just like, hey, I need this, Marcus, I need this. Can I get an approval for this? How do you prevent people? Do you have a chain of command? Do you have set rules where you only come to me for this? How do you balance all that? Because
that's a good question. There's no, like, I don't have an answer for it right now. I mean, I've tried to give like the people opportunities to take over certain roles, and stresses them out. They're like, oh, I'm spread too thin, and then they drop the ball on several things, and it's like, okay, if you're not going to do it, I have to do it. So then I go behind them, and it's like I'm able to do it so much faster than they are, and so much easier than they are, and it stresses them out. So it's like, I solve problems, I find solutions because I have to. And, I sometimes, like, I've given someone 3 weeks to solve a problem, and it's like the problem's not solved. So I sit down, I focus on it, I solve it in, 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And it's a good enough solution. It works. And it's like, dude, I gave you 3 weeks to solve this problem. Or, customers complaining because people aren't following up, or the ball gets dropped on super important tasks to keep the company moving forward. If they don't do it, I have to do it. And I've given people so many chances, and it's just like, they can only do what their capacity allows them to do, and also what they're motivated to do. And for
Very
me,
true.
my motivation is not losing the company. To them, their motivation is, sometimes it's like, oh, I've already secured my paycheck. I just need to make it through the next pay cycle to get another paycheck. Whereas my motivation is, man, I got to come up with $300,000 a month, every month. So it's a lot of weight on my shoulders. I am looking for someone. I'm trying to like find that general manager or CEO, or someone that can, take on a lot of the roles and responsibilities and tasks that I have. But it's hard because no one wants to do, more than what they need to do to get their paycheck. And
those people are probably already running their own companies, right?
yeah.
I think the
And then
person
the
you're
good
looking
ones,
for is
it's hard. It's hard.
already hustling out there.
Yeah, or they're super successful and set in their job. I've got friends who make $100,000 a month. I can't pay them $100,000 a month, but they'd be great general managers or CEOs for my company. So it's like, what do I do?
Maybe you can offset their quality of life. Like, hey, here you only work a certain amount of hours or time, whereas I'm sure they're working 24/7 at their current companies.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a pitch, but only if they're not like living paycheck to paycheck, because some people do. They make 100, they spend 100.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah. And that's another common trap that a lot of people fall in. They got to have the big houses and cars and expensive lifestyle, when they make that type of money instead of budgeting or saving. So it's a never ending problem. Elon Musk said, owning a business is like staring into the abyss and chewing glass.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Tasty.
Yeah.
With a lot of cuts.
Yeah. Staring into the abyss because there's never an ending in sight, and chewing glass because you're solving all of the problems that people beneath you can't solve. So it's You're taking all the pain and you're like.
I mean, some people can
There's
see
no
it as
other
like,
side.
yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's too
Yeah.
rough. But I mean, some people are just built for that. And it seems like you're built for that.
Yeah, I'm built for that. I was forged through a very, very traumatic childhood, to be able to take a lot of the stress and solve a lot of these problems. So like my greatest upset in life and my saddest part of my life, being a child who needed a strong mother and a loving family and foundation and all that. I had none of it. And, I was exposed to a lot of like abuse and neglect and torture, call it what you may. That, it was like where I lost the will to live. And I tried to take my own life when I was 16 and emancipated at 15, after 12 years of suffering. And then I slowly, like started to regain the passion to live, and first it was, being homeless at 17, 18, 19 years old took a toll on me. So I had zero ambition to be successful. I just wanted to survive. I just wanted to make enough money to pay the rent, keep a roof over my head, and then, go out and do it again. And that's where part of what, who I am today came from. And I'm constantly working to reprogram my mind, to retrain it, to get out of the scarcity mindset, to get out of the survival mentality, instead of going out working hard and then coming home and just relaxing. It's like, let me try to like live life better, let me have more adventures and more experiences and do better, cooler things in life than just survive. And to this day, I'm still kind of like in that cycle. So it's like, at some point I need to start enjoying life more and having a better work-life balance. And if anyone out there has a couple million to invest, I think that'll solve all of the problems. Because it's just constantly, chasing money to replace the money that's being spent until the profit comes in. And it's just, it's a never ending cycle of like juggling money, right now.
Sounds like it, yes.
If I had a cushion, then yeah, it'd be much easier, But.
I mean, you've definitely overcome a lot. That's definitely a story of survival and resilience. And I mean, it seems like you're basically self-taught in order to get to where you are. What principles do you feel like you have adapted to kind of keep you centered? Because it seems like someone who has gone to so much trauma and pain, looking at you, no one would see it. You're telling your story. You're not crying. Seems like you've done a lot of healing work. But what are you doing or what have you done to keep you centered so you don't go back? I mean, you hear stories of the greats of men who get out of the hood, they go to medical school, and one bad decision destroys their whole life because they go back and make mistakes. They destroy their family, their career, their reputation. And you did mention that with your previous partner, you had thoughts of like maybe going back to how you grew up, but you stopped yourself because that could have easily destroyed everything you've worked on, right? So what do you do to keep you centered, to not let your past come back and haunt you?
A big part was reinventing myself, moving to California from Milwaukee at the time, and getting a new group of friends other than the same people I grew up around, who most of them are lowlifes. Most of them are scammers and hustlers, drug dealers, gangsters, whatever. And there's no honor amongst thieves. It's like you're around that environment, and those aren't the people I wanted to become. You are the average of your 5 closest friends. So I try to surround myself with better people, doctors, lawyers, CEOs, successful people. Stoicism. I'm not a religious man, but I'm a spiritual man. I don't follow like one specific religion per se, but I find like gold nuggets of wisdom and information in all religions. And I've turned to philosophy, and the philosophy I like the most is Stoicism. So Stoicism is like, being your word, integrity, doing the right thing, following the some of the scripture of Marcus Aurelius, who was a big Stoic. Reading books like The Four Agreements, one of my favorite books. Always do your best. Be your word. Trying to remember the other ones. Integrity. Don't speak ill of people. It's
Sometimes like be impeccable with your word.
yeah, be impeccable with your word, which is, don't say bad things about people, right?
Don't take things personally.
Yeah, yep. Don't take things personally. So they were talking about in the book, if you take something personal that someone else is feeding you or giving you, you're now taking on their troubles because it's about them. If I'm having a bad day and I'm cussing you out, it's not you're not a bad person. I'm just having a bad day and I'm projecting it onto you. So if I take it personal, now I'm, falling for it,
That's huge in customer service, right? Because
Yeah.
people can have a bad day. They woke up in the morning, they got bad news, and now, they're going throughout their day and they're projecting all of this negative energy on you. And now you have to, how do you move around it, right?
Yeah.
Don't take it personal to start off.
Yep. Always do your best is one of them. And what that means to me is like, don't show up and do something like half-assed, like, do it at my best. It's like if you're gonna cook a meal and you don't want to like cook the steak halfway or the food you don't want to boil the noodles halfway because then it's gonna taste bad, and you're gonna get that result. What's the last one?
Don't make assumptions.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite. So don't make assumptions, right? If you're making assumptions, you're assuming that this person, that this is supposed to be that way or that's supposed to be this way, and you're putting yourself in a corner, right? You're putting yourself in a box, and when you put yourself in that box, you don't see the many other things that it could mean or it could lead to that could be advantageous, other than, oh, the car stopped running, so I'm going to assume the car is a bad car. It's just an alternator or a battery. Like, don't come to me like screaming bloody murder and I've screwed you out of thousands of dollars and made your life horrible. I had a little kid like that, one of my first clients. Oh man, he wrote me so many bad Yelp reviews, sued me. He got his parents behind me and they wrote me all these bad reviews. All because the battery in the car was old and the remote key fob that unlocked the doors didn't work. Oh yeah, I went through a lot of trouble with that one. It was like, dude, you paid like $3,000 for this car. It was an old Honda Accord with like 100,000 miles. So, I mean, to me, I'm like, dude, you're getting a one of the most reliable cars with low miles for $3,000. And just because the key fob and the battery doesn't work.
Simple $100 fix, right?
Yeah.
Or
simple.
less.
And you need a new battery, and the car won't start the next day because the battery's not holding a charge. It's like, no, I sold you a great car and you didn't deserve it. But you assumed that I sold you a bad car and I was a bad person because I didn't do all of that up front. And it's like, it was one of the most stressful experiences when I first started the dealership. This guy got rallied up all his parents, and I'm treating this poor college student so poorly, and all these letters and drama and bad reviews for, someone who was entitled and spoiled and never had a tough time in his life. So now this is such a big deal to them. And, that's the difference between someone like that or, who's sheltered and overly like protected as a child versus someone like me who really was a poor kid, didn't even get to go to college, dropped out of 9th grade in high school because I was homeless. And I got my first car, which was a 1979 Mercury Zephyr. I paid $350 for it. I was so happy to have a car. The car didn't stop because the brakes were horrible. It didn't have heat. The floorboards were rusted through. You could see the ground. The windows didn't work, and it was loud, and it was a clunker. And probably, I only drove it like twice, but I was just so happy to have the car. And I made payments. I came back and kept giving the guy $100 here, $50 there to get the car, and I never really enjoyed it, but I was just happy to have a car,
Wow.
So it's a difference of perspective, going back to perspective, right? Oh, wow, I got a solid, reliable car. And in my mind, 100,000 miles on that engine and transmission means you got another 100,000 miles, possibly 300,000 miles to go. You just got to fix the little stuff around it. And that's what it is owning a car.
It seems from your life experience,
Yeah.
you've learned a lot about just human psychology and how to survive people and how to move around different energy. So you were talking about you left your friends behind because they were a bad influence. But now in the business world, you have so many people, so many business folk who maybe come off as admiring you, but they're hoping for your downfall, right? Because I'm sure not everyone's a fan. I mean, you left the new car store industry, you built your own during the pandemic. You've grown so much. I'm sure there's a lot of envy and a lot of jealousy and a lot of people hoping for you not to be successful.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
deal with these folks when in your face they're being nice, but maybe they're plotting against you? Not necessarily actively, but, just not wishing the best for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of people feel like they deserve what I have. A lot of people feel like I don't deserve what I have. And there's a lot of people who look down on me even to this day when I've outshined and outmaneuvered them and outworked them and smarted them, not like as in trying to like beat them, but just showed them that I'm a better, operator, problem solver in every way. There's a lot of people out there that think that, I'm not worthy, and I get it, but that's like taking it personal, right? I'm not going to take it personal because that's their belief, and
Exactly.
some of it's rooted from jealousies, some envy, some of it. I think there's certain people, in my life currently that think that they're better than me and that they deserve more than what I have because they're smarter or better or whatever the reason is that they think that. And it's okay. I'm forgiving, and either they're going to eventually see things from a better way, or they're going to continue to be that person and they're never going and that's going to stunt their own growth. The worst thing you can do is compare yourself to somebody else and say, I should have what that person has. It'll eat you alive. You'll never, ever, ever stop because there's always going to be someone richer, someone smarter, someone better looking, and it's never going to end. Versus competing with yourself.
Exactly.
Like, how can I become better? What can I do today to make myself better? And none of us are perfect. I think the biggest downfall of the human beings is they look at what they're better at doing than the other person that they're comparing themselves to, and use that as a way of this person doesn't deserve this because I'm better at this than they are.
Means that they just haven't put in the work.
Well, yeah. Either they haven't put in the work, they haven't taken the risk, or they're neglecting all of the things that that person's better at on a different side of the cycle that they're not as good at, or they don't see it. You know, they don't want, a lot of people, when they do that, they don't want to admit that they're not as good at something that someone else is good at, but they're definitely better at something else that that person's not as good at. So it's always an unfair, like, advantage. You know, it's just like when couples argue and they start talking to their individual friend groups and or friends or whatever, they're going to always rally their friends behind them because it's their perception of what happened. And it's not the equal fair truth of what happened. It's, oh, this person was this, and this, and they're wrong. And then their friends are like, yeah, you deserve better, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, really, like, both parties have a equally, like, damaging point of view to their friends of what that person is capable of or deserving. And unless they're a real friend, you know, they're always going to take that side and say, well, what did you do? You know, like, what's your role in this? Why are you triggering that reaction from the individual? What can you do to make it better? You know? And it's like, you know, Dave Chappelle joked about it. He's like, I'm a victim blamer. Like, you know, a girl gets beat, like, what did she do to deserve it? Or, you know, which is horrible, but shouldn't happen. But it's like, what did that person do, you know, to get, it's like two strangers walk up and they get in a confrontation, road rage or whatever. One of them gets punched in the face. That stranger can say, oh, you know, this guy just out of the blue, he cut me off and he came and punched me in the face. But they're not going to talk about, I pulled up to the light honking at him, flipping him off, and then got out the car in his face. It's like, no, dude, you kind of like had a part in it, right? Every decision that we make in our lives, and it doesn't matter, like, you know, this is one of the things I've learned in my self-help, self-training classes. We are 100% responsible for every single thing that happens to us. If I walk in the hood right now and I get shot, you can make me a martyr. You can say, hey, this guy was a hero. He didn't deserve what happened to him. I chose to go into the hood. I chose to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's my bad. I did that to myself. I'm 100% responsible for my own demise. But, you know, if someone breaks in my house in the middle of the night and they shoot me, yeah, it's not my fault, but I'm responsible because I didn't have the proper security system, or I did something stupid to trigger this person to say, hey, this guy's a victim. You know, same thing, like when I was in another country, they're like, oh man, you got to be careful. Sao Paulo, Brazil, they rob you and they get you. Yeah, there's a lot of that out there. But you know who those guys are looking at? They're looking for weak people. They're looking for the sheep, the people who are like passive, got their heads down, trying not to be seen, trying to hide, and they got nice stuff. You know, I could go out there, I could wear nice stuff, and, you know, chances are I probably won't get robbed because I'm going to look at the people and I'm going to recognize who those guys are because I know who those people are. And those are the people like scheming and you know, looking for victims and targets. And I'm going to look them in their eyes. And I'm going to let them know with the eye contact that I'm not one of those. And I'm going to fight and I'm going to fuck you up if you try anything. And guess what? That eye contact says a lot because that's exactly what happened when I was out there. You know, I'm making sure my friends are safe because the people I was with weren't doing it. But I'm going to do that. And I've seen plenty of those people out there. And it's no different than the villains that are here in America, you know? The same people in Chicago, Milwaukee, Kansas City, some of the roughest neighborhoods I've ever lived in. And I did. I became very street smart because I used to get robbed and taken advantage of. But I looked weak. I wasn't looking. I wasn't giving people that eye contact. And I wasn't letting them know with my eyes like, yo, I'm going to fuck you up if you try anything. And that's the difference between me and those people that are getting taken advantage of. But, not everyone can help it because not everyone's had to live that life and learn that. You walk in the wrong place with your head down and you got a nice watch on and you got your cell phone out in these third world countries where, that's a lot of money to them. They could sell your iPhone for $800 and they're going to come and try you, and even me, like I'm not stupid enough to have it out. But, there's so many things that go into it. But even if I do, it's like, I'm not going to be like ignoring the group around me. I'm going to be looking for the ones who are looking for the easy targets. Like most of the bad stuff that goes on, it happens to weak people. And that's one of the things I did learn growing up is not to be a victim, not to be a target. I had to become this like, bad motherfucker, like, fuck with me and it's going to hurt equally.
You had to be the protector that you needed when you were a child.
Yeah. I developed this alter ego, and it's like it's my demon phase that comes out. I get real mean and aggressive and strong and voice changes and then I become a very scary individual in that phase. And sometimes it's hard to put him back in the box, once he's out, he's wild, and I don't black out exactly, but I become somebody who I didn't think I was possible or capable of being. I become a badass fighter and I can, fuck up most 95% of the men out there, without training. I was pretty badass and I was just quick. Then I took some training and became stronger and bigger. And now no one really wants to fuck with me, even if they're trained. Most of the trained fighters I've met was like, I wouldn't fuck with you. Like, or they're fighting MMA and they're like, I can tell you know how to throw your own. But that was like the character I had to develop. So that's the difference between me and someone passive and someone weak, and someone who's like a victim. And yeah, I'm a protector of those people. If I see something going down, I'm going to step in. I've done it before many times. I had this one guy I was in a group home with. He has some like, weird, like his limbs are like twisted the wrong way or whatever.
Cerebral palsy or something.
Yeah, something like that. And he just walks like funny and stuff. And I remember like running into him, in the hood. I'm at this like trap house or whatever. And I'm hanging out with this guy I knew from my group, my current group. And this guy, Cornelius, he was cool. We were always cool. And it was my homie. And I was in the group home with him. And then this dude, Alpo, starts like giving him a bunch of, he starts like bullying him and messing with him. And I didn't like that. So I got up in Alpo's face and, I was like ready to fight him. And he jumps at me and I'm throw swing at him, but I miss. And he was like, oh shit, this guy's serious. And he chilled the fuck out. He never even tried to press him again, and I was there like protecting him because the dude was like helpless. Like, why are you picking on this dude? Like, you're a stocky dude. Like, you could easily whoop this guy. What are you trying to prove? Why are you trying to punk him? Fuck with me, And he could have probably whooped me if we got into it or got the best of me, but I didn't care. I was like, all right, we're gonna go at it, man. Stop fucking with this dude. And number one, that's my homie, and number two, that's not right. And Elpo was like my homie too at the time, but in my mind at that point, he was wrong. So I got on his ass. But yeah, it's like protecting the weaker people. And then especially if they're my friend, I'm the type of guy, like if someone comes in, there's a mass shooter or whatever, and they're like shooting and my friends are around, I'm taking the bullets. Like I'm putting my friends behind me. I'm covering them. I'm their shelter. I'm their like bulletproof vest. Because, maybe I could take more shots than they can take. I'm a bigger guy, whatever. But that's the type of guy I am. I could take the pain and I probably have a higher chance of surviving than they do.
You got God watching you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, dude, he saved my ass several times, like growing up. There's like 12, specifically 12 times where I thought I was dead. And by many means and rights, I should have been, getting shot at or even hits sent out to kill me when I was young, and I was going through the streets. And it's like it had to be God that stopped them from pulling the trigger when they had the gun pointed at my head, or, somehow all the bullets missed me when I was getting shot at, or someone coming to stab me and just giving me that brave, that other side of me that comes out. And it was like, what's up? I'm ready. Let's go. Where other people would have ran, I'm like, let's go. Like, what's up? And I'm ready to face it. And then they back now because they're like, this isn't as easy as I thought it would be. Something in their mind or their heart changed, Specifically the one where, it's like the crazy thing, right? I had a dream I got killed. I got murdered. And it was a surreal dream. It was almost like a premonition where I was floating above my body after getting shot in my head. And then the dude shot me again in my head, and I felt it as I was floating. And I was like, man, I'm not supposed to feel pain after I'm dead. And it's like, why am I feeling the pain as I'm floating away from my body? And then this dream almost came true in two different versions, but one of them, I was getting robbed. I was out there in the streets, man. Kansas City, Missouri, back in the 90s was wild, wild west. Like, bodies were dropping every day. I lived in, if you guys know who Tech 9 is, I lived in his neighborhood. I actually lived in his old house at one point, right after he moved out, and I hung out with him a couple times, but he'd come by, and he'd hang out with us, me and my buddy. But anyway, like in my dream, it happened, and one of the guys from my dream, not the trigger man, a different guy, he was supposed to kill me, and he was pointing the gun at my head. He was a younger dude, and he didn't. He was looking at me in my eyes, and the other guys hiding behind the house and waiting for the gun to go off and watch someone get killed, and it was like, I'm watching it, and I was like, it's my time, and I started looking him in his eyes. I'm like, what's up? And in my mind, I'm like, how can I take the gun from him? I'm calculating the moves. And I see him start to go soft, and he's like, well, get out of here before I pull the trigger. And, it goes from, he was instructed to kill me by the gang members to get out of here before I pull the trigger. And I was like, oh, he's giving me a pass. He's not brave enough, or God's touching his heart, or whatever's happening, at the moment. And, we were looking each other in the eyes deeply, and I was like upset. And then I started walking away. And then again, he was like, start running or I'm gonna pull the trigger. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I just kept walking away. And it was crazy. Like, that was one of the times where I was like, man, like, God's definitely there. I felt him, But there's many other stories where it's like, man, I should have been dead. And it's like, I can't believe I survived that.
Wow.
Being the only white boy growing up in the hood. They called me WB. It was for white boy. So it was cool. I made a reputation for myself. I was down to fight anybody, and often did, when it came time to do it. And became a icon in the hood. So,
And you transcended that into the business world. So.
Yeah. All that taught me the street smarts and made me tough. Every once in a while, there's there's a gangster or someone from the hood or some wannabe that comes in the dealership and they think that they're going to get loud and intimidate me. And then I start getting loud and intimidating back. And to this day, it's never resulted in throwing hands, but I've always been ready. And there's still some people out there. I still like, hey, you owe me a fade, like, let's go, man. Like, if I see you again, it's on, but I think one of the most recent ones is he called me a bitch to my face. And then I went from like being this like nice character to like really like changing fast. And then he saw it and he got a little nervous and backed down. And, it's like, also, I don't want to get sued, so like in that back part of my brain is like, yo, protect your business, protect your finances. That's the number one way to get sued, because that dude wasn't ready to throw down. He was holding the leash of his little cute dog, and he's trying to act like, maybe he was a gangster, and then there's that part of my mind, like, I could get hurt, like this person could fuck me up. But at the time, like, my brain takes over, like, there's no way that like I'm gonna like knock him out with one punch, and whatever. But then again, it's like, whatever, I'm like, it's not worth it. If I can avoid it, I will, but I'm not going to let someone, punk me, or intimidate me and get me,
Well, only in self-defense, right?
Yeah, definitely in self-defense. Like, someone throws hands first or throws the first punch, I'm going to give them all I got. And if they beat me, great. You know what? But I guarantee you one thing, they'll never, ever, ever want to fight me again. It's like they feel one of my punches. They're like, yeah. But enough with the tough guy.
Well, that was a great talk. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thanks. And, at the same time, gets a little off track on some of these, but at the end of the day, it's about selling cars, helping people, and maybe one day soon helping people start up their own car dealerships and mentoring other people to become good at this business. So until next time, thank you for being a guest on my podcast.
Thank you for having me. Anytime.
And, we will continue this and see how it goes.